Let us begin. Click, click, everyone, and welcome to BHT Studios, and welcome to my second weekly live show. I thought this time I would leave the microphone in here, and let me just see here. I'm still new at this, so please forgive me. There's 6 of you in right now, and how do I make someone? Will, I think you need to comment first, I think, and then I can make you into a participant. Here we go, so I can see the participants. Let me see here. Let me, starting in 9 minutes. Thank you. Oh no, that's my comment. What's happening here? Thanks for joining. And live chat. Let's just see if enable slow mode, allow live chat to reply. I don't see any. First of all, is my audio good, guys? How's the audio? How's the video? Is everything looking all right? Someone rightly had complained the last live show and said, you have auto white balance. And it's like, exactly, it's auto white balance. I should have made sure that was fixed. But Will, if you comment, I think I can then make you, I can't see people. I can't see anyone in the comment section. Am I doing this wrong? I see myself, but I don't know if I'm in the right screen, or maybe I need to go to into the YouTubes and see what's happening here. But is anyone trying to comment right now? And nothing's coming through? I don't know what's happening here. End stream. Welcome to live chat. Remember to guard your privacy. Something's happening here. Will, if you are connected to Instagram, can you IG me and tell me people are commenting? Yeah, I don't see anything. This is madness. I'm in the YouTube Studio app, but then I don't see any comments coming up, which is weird. How do I get out of YouTube Studio? Pop out chat. Maybe that's the thing. I need to pop. There we go. I don't know what happened. It wasn't in my main screen. I'm seeing you guys. Okay, so Will is going to be my moderator. So add moderator. And then Will is now moderator for your channel. And Will's like, so thank you for volunteering to be my moderator. Will's like, what do I do? And I said, kick out unruly people and make sure I'm on topic and whatever else. I think maybe you can pin comments or something, Will. I don't know what you can do. Why don't you just play with it and see what happens? And so thank you guys for joining. I can see all your names here: Kevin and Will, Suave Vision, Kevin, Dan, Ken. Thank you for joining. Kitty, I remember you from the Monogram Asia. Thanks for joining. How's things in Thailand? You live in Bangkok. And Kitty, put down your Instagram. Are you on Instagram, Kitty? Just put your Instagram handle. I like to promote female photographers because my algorithms tell me 91% of my followers are male and 9% female, which is not as good as I want it to be. However, in general, like YouTube gives lots of algorithms. In general, tech reviewers, like ones like MKBHD and Jonathan Morris, they're like 1 or 2% female and like 97, 98% male. And so 9% isn't great, but it's better than tech in general. But I would love to see, more females, because when I'm out shooting and when I meet people, I meet a lot of female photographers. But when it comes to engaging on social, I enjoy that. There you go. So Kits no Naro. So go follow Kitty on Instagram. Give her your support. And I hope everything is going all right. I know there's lots of protests and stuff happening in Bangkok as well. I don't know how well you have the COVID thing controlled there, but I see a lot of the protests. So please stay safe. But in a way, I guess it gives you a reason to go out and shoot because there's things to shoot. Also, I hope it's all right, guys, for me to put the microphone in here. I tend to talk loud when the microphone's far away. And so I thought I would at least, not that I want it on screen, but now I know why people have it on screen. Because usually when I see a microphone on screen, I'm like, why do you just have it off camera, guys? But now I realize it's because it keeps them from yelling. And as well as if there are any ambient noise in the room, they don't have to worry about it coming into the sound mix. And so this is the Rode Video Micro, nothing fancy. It's directly connected to my X-T4. And then from there, it's HDMI out to my video capture card, USB into my camera, into my laptop. And then there you go. So let's, hey, Jonathan, how's it going? And Scott, there you go. Kitty, I haven't been to Thailand since 2010, but plan to go back. Yeah, man, alive. Don't we all wish we can fly around? This year, so this year, I missed the Film Paideia down in San Clemente. I missed a workshop, a co-workshop that I was going to do in Italy with Fujilove magazine, with the founder of Fujilove, Tomasz. I missed going to Photokina and seeing my cousin in Germany. I missed going to Hong Kong at least twice because I would have gone. No, I would have gone one more because I was there in January and I would have been back again about this time now. I missed my trip to go to Osaka to see my little brother because she had just moved into a new apartment. So how many trips is that so far? Oh, and I missed a trip to the UK. And then finally, I would have maybe squeezed in one trip to New York or Toronto, or I could have done both. So that's like eight trips that I missed this year because of COVID. So man, oh man. It's and Kitty, COVID isn't too bad. Yeah, most Asian countries, even the ones that are like hit really badly, like I think Japan, of the Asian countries, probably is mismanaging it the worst out of the Asian countries. I think probably Taiwan is doing the best job, and then probably South Korea, and then Hong Kong. But you know, Asia's very strict about COVID, mask wearing and stuff like that. So I'm glad that it's not too horrible there. Sincerus, thanks for joining. Jamie, Ali, your name sounds familiar. So I know a lot of you guys use different handles for Instagram and different handles for YouTube. So if I know you on Instagram but I don't know your YouTube handle, just let me know. I think last week someone had said, oh, this is me on YouTube, but I'm this on Instagram. So I had no, Photokina is done for, I think a lot of the big trade shows for the next 2 years are, they're in trouble. Definitely they're in trouble. And I hope that we can, I was showing Camera Girl, my wife, a video of AC/DC in somewhere, wherever they go. They have like 50,000 people watching, 70,000 people. And they call it like the world's biggest mosh pit because the whole floor, it's like everyone's jumping. And, you know, half the people have their shirts off. The whole band has their shirt off, or at least Angus Young and Malcolm Young have their shirts off. And we're looking at it going like, man, that just even like a year ago, we would have looked at that and thought, well, I would have thought that's insane, but we would have thought that was reasonably normal. And now you're like, I don't see that happening anytime soon. And so Ali Mongol on Instagram, there you go. So that's where I think that's where I perhaps recognize you. So Ken, I'll be interesting to see if they actually come back after not for 1 or 2 years. We're talking about Photokina. Yeah, we'll see all those things. Like the Film Paideia, we were going to grow it every year. And this year was going to be like, make it a little bit bigger than last year, a little bit better than last year. And, you know, now it's delayed. And I think if they do on this in 2021, it may be US only. Because I've been trying to get my friends from Asia and all over the world, like Hamish Gill from 35mmC, Vishal Soniji from Camera Film Photo, Bellamy Hunt from Japan Camera Hunter, getting guys like that over to North America to give a talk at the Film Paideia, kind of getting more international, global, I don't want to use the word influencer, but, you know, people that are very strategic and very influential in the film community to come over to North America and to kind of mix it up a little bit. But I think maybe even someone like me might not be invited to 2021, or not just not invited, but even if I'm invited, I might not be able to go down in 2021 if I don't have the ability to get the vaccine early enough. And so we'll see what happens. Let me just, people talking about Bernardino, where I live, is on stay at home now and closing some events there till December. Yeah, I mean Vancouver is kind of getting that way as well. So I hope everyone can stay safe. We could probably talk about the pandemic for the next hour, but I want to keep this kind of upbeat and fun because for those of you that follow me on Instagram, you know that I used to do major live shows like 2 or 3 times a week. And even kind of in between, like if I took camera girl shopping or to do some chore and I knew that I'd be 20 minutes alone in the car, I just kind of quickly do a live show. But someone, a very wise friend of mine, a colleague, someone I look up to said, Take, you know, don't spend so much time doing IG Live. Spend more time creating content that is more permanent and more meaningful and a better use of your time. And so for those of you that notice, oh, wow, Take doesn't do 5 or 6 Instagram live shows on Instagram anymore. It's because of that. And so I stopped and I thought I would still do live, but do it in a more stable platform, if I can call YouTube that, where once this is done, I will post it as a regular video. And then if anyone asks questions after, I'll be able to answer those. And so let me just kind of get back over to the questions here. Not too many questions so far, but keep them coming. If you can think of something, I kind of was going to do, I had, as you probably saw, I changed the thumbnail to the Ricoh GRs because I've been getting a lot of questions on different socials. I get DMs and as well as questions right in videos and stuff. And I can tell by my YouTube algorithms, all my Ricoh videos still get a lot of views. Even like years later, if I see like my top 10 videos of the month, there's always a Ricoh GR video in the top 10. So a lot of people have questions about the Ricoh GR. Should I get the GR2? Should I sell it and get the GR3? You know, is the GR3, does it overheat? Blah, 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 blah. So I do have a GR3 from Ricoh on a long-term 6-month loan. And if you guys saw my YouTube video, I did an unboxing. I saw someone, Don, saying that was it Don or Ken, you like my what's in my bag? Yeah, I think maybe I'm going to try to do more of those on YouTube. Like if you guys seem to like it, I thought I would do another throwback what's in my bag from 20 years ago. I did my honeymoon and no, I didn't do my honeymoon. I talked about my honeymoon. I did my trip to Japan, but I might do like what's in my camera bag when I was shooting a wedding or what's in my camera bag when I was shooting sports and sort of show my gear for those sort of things. And so I'll try to keep that series going, but this also helps me out a lot because it takes time to create videos. As I said last week, I was 14 videos behind, probably, meaning I've shot the videos and they're waiting on my hard drive, but it's I haven't been able to produce them yet, edit them. And I'm probably about 16 behind now in terms of I've shot them, and probably another 4 more videos that I haven't even shot. Like I have the unopened boxes in my storage closet behind me, and I have to still shoot those videos and then create the content. So I definitely need help, but doing these kind of videos helps me at least create 1 video a month. And if you notice, within the last month, I've actually posted 10 videos. And I think between March and August, I only posted 3. So this is very prolific for me, but I do hope to create more regular content on a regular basis. Donald Klein Media, I get it. So if you could pick one place to travel, where would you like to go to? It depends if it's personal or if it's for work or if it's for personal project. I think for work, Hong Kong makes sense because I have the most open projects there, open-ended projects that I need to finish, as well as maintaining my connections with the various brands and companies that I work with in Hong Kong. So it'd be Hong Kong for work. For personal, it would definitely be probably either Japan because of Camera Girl and my brother and my family in Japan, or it'll be the UK or the UK. And then I can't remember now. Personal projects will probably New York, Montreal, UK. Personal will probably be UK or Japan. And strictly for business/work, it'll be Hong Kong. Those are the places I would go. And if I could, then I would definitely go as well. Shout out to Vishal. He's one of my favorite photographers. Tell him we need more videos. Yeah, Dan662. Definitely, Vishal is a very talented photographer. He keeps on saying he's not a photographer, and I don't like when anyone says that they're not, even if they're just starting out or if they're very good. And that's the problem, is Vishal is very good, but he still says, I'm not really a photographer. I think people should proclaim themselves as photographers and, you know, not have to say, well, I'm not a professional. To me, that doesn't mean anything, because I've been in the industry long enough as well. When I was in the wholesale at Kodak, working at photo labs, I can tell you that a lot of the professionals weren't really that great at photography. They were decent photographers. They knew what people wanted and they knew how to duplicate what people were looking for. But, you know, they had very low hit rates. Because they were pro, they're getting paid. They can do a wedding and shoot like 40 rolls and pick out 100 good photos. Of course, with 40 rolls, you're going to pick out 100 good photos. But I found a lot of my colleagues that were amateur photographers, so not professional, but a lot of them were doctors, lawyers, a lot of airline pilots that had the money as well as the time to travel, especially airline pilots, that they were way better photographers. Definitely better photographers. So, you know, the old adage of because someone's professional, that automatically makes them better photographers, I think it's more glaring now than it's ever been, where the term professional only means that you make money at it, right? That's all it means. It's almost like saying, because my mom is not a professional chef, she's not a really good cook. She has to be a professional. Some of the best chefs, the best cooks in the world are our moms, right? And none of them do it professionally. So same as photography, I think the smartphone cameras really has democratized photography, where people that, you know, didn't have access to gear, especially in the film days where gear and developing all those things were roadblocks, right? It was more difficult to get access to the professional equipment. As well, there were gatekeepers like magazines and TV shows and contests and stuff like that, that even if you were a great photographer, how do you access these things to be able to showcase your work? It was not on a global scale. It was often on a local scale at a local coffee shop or something like that. And now that we have social media, that people in the, you know, in the middle of nowhere, right, in Siberia or in the middle of sub-Saharan Africa, are showcasing not only the photography, but as well as the videography, their movie making skills. And people are mind blown because we're getting different perspectives, because gatekeepers are important, I think, to a certain degree, but not in everything. And I often think that the bias of gatekeepers finds its way in the images that are chosen, as well as those that are allowed in, because the gatekeepers themselves have unknown biases that they themselves didn't realize that they had. So we're seeing more Asian photographers. People are now discovering photographers like Fan Ho, before people like Fan Hu. I think social media did really help that, as well as cinematographers. Like the inside people in Hollywood knew cinematographers like Wong Kar-wai were amazing, but I think it's only because of social media now that it's become more accessible to people. And so I think in terms of photography, we should all declare ourselves as photographers, you know, as one of many other titles you may have. So you may be a doctor, you may be a frontline worker, you might be a business person, you might be an entrepreneur, you can be a garbage man. It doesn't matter what you are, a farmer. But if you also take photos and you take it seriously, you declare yourself a photographer. So you say, I'm a farmer / photographer. And that's my thoughts on that. Lan Gray, I recently got to know your YouTube channel. Well, thank you very much. Your pictures inspire me. I appreciate that, especially color correction is what I pursue. So I want to know how you correct color. Yeah, so Lan, one day I will. So I'm using the basic YouTube webcam application. So it allows me to have one input video, one input audio. Maybe it allows for more than one, but I can't see it. I need to use an app called OBS, which is a free software that allows me to change camera angles. So if you've seen some of the fancier YouTubers, they will switch from, you know, A cam like this, and they might have a B cam above so they can look straight down. And then they might have a C cam, which is actually a screenshot. So I will once I learn how to use OBS fluently, what I will do is to have special shows where I'll show you my entire photography workflow from ingestion, meaning how do I take my photos that are on my card, bring it into my computer, and then how do I organize my photos onto my external hard drives? And then from there, how do I use Lightroom to edit through the photos? And editing and post-processing are two different things. A lot of people now use it very loosely, meaning edit also means to process, but there actually are separate things. And because I think people confuse video editing with photo editing, editing means to go through your photos and you kind of organize them and you take your selects and you can do kind of minor corrections, especially in batches with Lightroom. But other than that, when you're actually like going into the photo, adjusting white balance, making corrections, that kind of stuff, that's actually post-processing. Now the term edit and post-process now are so loosely put together that even on Instagram, they call it edit. And even professionals now that are maybe shooting for 3 or 4 years, they don't come from the film era. They don't even know that there's a difference between edit and post-processing. And I think eventually the word usage will change over time and the word edit will be synonymous. It kind of is already colloquially. The word edit is the same as post-processing, but I will show you my post-processing workflow on Photoshop, especially using the different film profiles. Because a lot of people are saying that, how can I get the colors that I'm getting on classic neg? They're like, their classic neg images look horrible. How are you getting the photos that you're getting? And I know Jonas Rask does a really good job. And a couple of us really love Joe D'Agostino. He's a Fujifilm photographer in New Jersey. He is also really good with classic neg. And he joined us last week. I'm not sure if he's on here right now, but he did a YouTube video on classic negative. So just look up Joe D'Agostino and classic neg, and he shot a video on that. But I also have a Fujilove article, a couple of them, on how to post-process your classic neg files. And so I will do that eventually. So let's just see what happens here. Hey, Taki, when did you get your first Leica? Vanessa, thanks for joining, Vanessa. My first Leica, like to shoot or to own, because I got my, like I had my Leica, my Minolta CLE that I had for, I don't know, 15, 20 years maybe, but it's actually my older brother's. That's why I always tell people it's technically not mine, it's his, but it's it's loaned to me indefinitely. So that's my first time I started using the Leica M mount. But the first time I've owned a Leica body is probably the Leica M7, and I bought that in 2018. So it's only been 3 years, 2-3 years since I've owned a Leica M body, but I've been shooting Leica M mount for 15, 20 years. So thanks for that question. Appreciate that. I'm gonna try to catch up here. I wish YouTube allowed me to have a, like, Will. So for those of you who don't know Will, I met Will in Montreal and he ended up moving to Japan. And so our time zones are different. Will, what time is it where you are? It's like 10 p.m. or so, or 10:30, whatever it is in Tokyo or in Fukuoka, right? It's no, sorry, it's in the morning, 10 something in the morning. So it's the morning of, but it'd be nice to have someone virtually in the room with me. So if you ever watch Unbox Therapy or any one of those guys, there's always someone off to the side that's kind of moderating and helping and maybe even doing camera switching. I'm doing everything myself. I have like my iPad next to me here, actually talking to Will when I can. And as well as, you know, if someone asks me questions, I have to grab things. And if I have OBS running, I'd have to do all my switching. It'd be nice to have someone who can remote assist me, remote be my producer. And if Will could also talk to me so he can actually just kind of cut in and say, hey, Take, move on. There's a good question here. So I do hope that 11:23, there you go. So it's almost lunchtime. So let's, what's the timing on this? I did the pop out. See, I think I did something wrong. I'm in the YouTube studio, so everything's black. The screen, your comments are black. And I think last week I was able to get into like the white screen where probably what you guys see, and everything is kind of white. And I can see the minutes I've been on. I can see everything, but I think I might have done something wrong. I am in Chrome, and my computer was acting up a little bit funny before I came on, and so we'll see what happens here. What's your rig for this live stream? So I am using the X-T4. I'm using the 23 f2, and I have it at f2.8. And my audio is the Rode Video Micro, so it's their cheapest video, and that's actually plugged into my X-T4. And then from my X-T4, I'm doing HDMI out to a little video capture card. And it's in my last week's live video, but I'll do it again on this live show. I'll give you a link to Amazon, and it'll link to the one in the US, but every country will have their own if you have access to Amazon. It's just like a $20, $25 video capture card. It converts your HDMI input, and it converts it just into a USB in. So the computer sees it like a webcam. So when you're in any app like YouTube Live here or in Zoom, and you can choose your camera, it usually defaults to your camera's built-in webcam. All you do is select, and you select the video for, it'll say USB input. It doesn't know that's the X-T4. And then for audio, I picked USB input. And then there you go. That's what it is. So that's why you get this nice kind of that shallow depth of field bokeh effect. The cheaper $20 video capture cards caps out at 1080p, 30 frames per second. And there are more expensive video capture cards so you're thinking, why is this video capture card $25 and why is this one $80? The 80 probably is either 1080p, but it can capture up to 60 frames per second or even higher. I'm not sure if they exist higher than 60, or because it can actually do this in 4K. This is stuck at 1080, but I think for current YouTube Live, 1080 is good. I don't even know if there is 4K live video. So Jonathan, oh, I see. So I have Will over here on my iPad, and he's saying Jonathan asked a good question here. Did I miss Jonathan's question? Where's Jonathan here? I must have missed it. So here, Jonathan asks, what point and shoot film camera would you say would be the best for a total beginner? Jonathan Pham, I think I remember you. Oh, so I see Jonathan's comment there. Do you mean film? Point and shoot film. Oh, so you said film camera. Would you say would be the best for a total beginner? Oh, I actually have what I would show you. Just give me a second here. If you can find it for a total beginner, if you can find it, I would say a Konica Big Mini. Now these things, fantastic plastics. I think that's kind of the nickname, because even the glass is kind of a hybrid plastic. It might have some glass in it, but I don't think all the elements are glass. Now, these things, they come in different versions. This is the f3.5 version. So this is probably, if you can find it in a country with lots of used cameras like Japan, you could pick these things up for probably 30 or 40 bucks on like Yahoo auctions or Amazon auction, whatever that, I think it's Yahoo auctions. And even if you go to Hong Kong, you could probably find these for easily under 100 bucks. Now, North America, people did buy these, but not in the same kind of quantity. And so these things here in North America, you probably will overpay for them, maybe about 150 bucks. Or I've seen them even as high as 200, which is too much money. But I would highly recommend this one for total beginner, meaning there is very little or no exposure control, maybe a little bit of plus or minus exposure. But if you do want full exposure control and you don't mind something that's fully manual, then the Olympus XA, and this is the XA1. I highly recommend the XA1, but this is a little bit tricky because, okay, you can pick your aperture here, which is nice, but also it is a true rangefinder. You actually are manually focusing. So if your eyes aren't so great, because look at the distance between your rangefinder focus window and your optical viewfinder. They're very close. So focusing is not that easy with this, although you can just stop down to, f16 or whatever, and you can sort of scale focus. But if you can find one of these are also great, but you need to be able to go full mechanical. So I think these two are good starter cameras for if you're looking for a good film point and shoot. Everything else, like the Ricoh GR1 and stuff like that, these are really luxury cameras. They're worth quite a bit. The GR1, they do break down quite easily. Mine did break a couple of years ago, and I had Vishal from Camera Film Photo fix mine for me. But I don't recommend this, even though I love it. It's like someone who loves like an old Fiat or something, a sports car, and says, I love it, but I don't recommend it because they always break. If you're looking for a two-seater convertible, get a Mazda MX-5, or here in North America, they're called Miatas. And same thing with this. Like, this is a very cool camera, and I love it. But would I rebuy one again if this broke again and I can't get it fixed? My answer is no. I'd probably buy one of the Fujis. I think we called them the DL Super Mini or something like that. I think in Asia it had a different name. I would look for 28 mil, even maybe a Minolta TC1, but those are very expensive. They were expensive even when they're new, and they're still expensive used. And so let's keep on going here. And let me see here, Jonathan. There you go. Okay, so I answered that. Will, thank you for letting me know. And I cannot pin comments. Okay. Let's see what else you can do. Like, can you actually don't block me? I was going to do a fake comment and you try to block me. That might actually do something to the video feed. I won't do that, but we'll research it maybe at some point. But thank you so much, Will, for volunteering to be my moderator. And I think hopefully, eventually, if I get OBS working, I'd love to have someone virtually next to me. And Will, if you want to volunteer, you can be my off-site virtual moderator / commenter for me. And Steele Matthews, thanks for joining. Leica DLs are nice. What's your take on Leica Mini Lux? I know Matt Day just did a video of the Mini Lux. And my buddy Juan from Beers and Cameras down in San Diego has one. Of the premium point and shoots, okay? So it's like saying, you know, I don't know, like who's the prettiest supermodel? The fact that you're even in that group means you're pretty super, right? Or like, what's your favorite supercar? Same thing. If you're already in that super group, you are already super. So of the premium point and shoots, that one is my least favorite. It is for multiple reasons. I just don't think it's even if it just comes down to the lenses, the Contax series, like the T2 and the original T and the T3, and as well as like Minolta TC1, which is a 28 mil lens, so it's not really fair. The Nikon 35 Ti, the 28 Ti. What else can you put in there? The Ricoh GR1 is kind of a bridge. It's kind of in the middle. It was never up at that same price point when it was new. These were like between $600 to $1,000 new, other than the GR21. But the 35 Ti, the T2, all those ones, when they were new, they were like $1,500 and above. So this is kind of now in that group, but it doesn't really belong there. Of that group of those super expensive titanium clad point and shoot, and that's another reason why this isn't really technically in that group. Of all those higher end point and shoots, they were all made out of titanium. This was made out of a magnesium alloy, so it was a cheaper material as well, which also made it cheaper. The Mini Lux is my least favorite. It's the quirkiest one to shoot. I'd say out of all those kind of premium point and shoots, I actually like the Konica Hexar, the AF, but it's so big, I kind of almost don't want to put it in that group. It's a weird, that's also a really weird camera, but weird in a good way if it works for you. So, but if you're thinking about in terms of money, like the T2 is very expensive. So if you got the Leica Mini Lux, I say go for it. It's still a good camera. I do like it. I would just pick a Contax T2 over it. And I would pick the Nikon 35 Ti over that one as well. And on top of that, I'm a 28 shooter, so I would pick a TC1, a Nikon 28 Ti, and those kind of cameras. I think Fujifilm had their Natura, I think that was called in Japan. I'm not sure what it was called everywhere else. They had their 28 as well. That also was kind of a weird, quirky camera. But yeah, so I think they're all great. They're all really cool cameras. And if you can get one for good price, I say go for it. I think of those premium point and shoot, the Mini Lux is probably one of the more accessible ones in terms of price as well, right? And that was also made in Japan. I think Minolta made it for Leica. It's either Minolta or Fujifilm. Leica in the 90s did not have the ability to make such a complex film automatic point and shoot. They just didn't. I'm almost positive it was made by Minolta. It wasn't made in Germany, and if it was maybe assembled in Germany, but the electronics and everything came from Japan. So let me see here. It's all the rage for some reason. The Mini Lux, yeah, because things kind of go in ebbs and flows, right? Like maybe it's because Matt Day just recently did a video on it, or maybe some movie star ended up going on the Tonight Show and showing off their T2, and all of a sudden everyone in Hong Kong complained that was it one of the Jenner girls, I think, went on the Tonight Show and showed off her T2, and all of a sudden everyone in Hong Kong raised their price of their T2s by like $500 because everyone, all of a sudden, there's a surge of people looking for them, right? They were already kind of overpriced anyways, but then all of a sudden it became this thing of legend. And so to me, I told people don't buy it because, right, especially now, it's just overpriced. I think the 35 Ti at the time was easily under 1,000 US at that time when that Jenner girl had the T2. And the T2 was at that time, I think, went up to like $1,500, $2,000. I'm like, get a 35 Ti. I say it's a better camera for me. It's prettier in my eyes, and I love that analog gauge they had. But I think the prices have kind of settled down just a little bit on the T2, and now I guess the Mini Lux is becoming cool again. But they're all great. Like, I have just as much fun shooting with a Konica Big Mini or the Olympus XA or my Ricoh GR1 or my 35 Ti, which I don't have with me here, but they're all fun and unique in their own way. So if you can afford it, buy it. But just remember that these little point and shoots, once they break, you can't fix them. And that's the problem with them, right? It's kind of, it's a very expensive toy. Like if you buy like a Nikon FM2 or a Minolta X700 or a Canon AE1 or Pentax K1000, if something breaks, you can get it fixed. There's enough parts out there, and what you're fixing is something mechanical, not electronic most of the time. But once those point and shoots, the leaf shutter goes or something goes, that's it. It's kaput. It's very expensive to get them fixed, almost as much as just buying another camera. Not necessarily another of the same camera. Like if you buy a $2,000 Contax T2 and something breaks on it, you might have to pay $1,000 to get it fixed. So by that time, is it really worth to spend that much money? If you have the money, like for instance, for me, my my Ricoh GR1, the leaf shutter went on this. I got a brand new leaf shutter put in for me, and Vishal basically charged me his cost, which was $250 US to get it fixed at his cost. So if he was going to charge me, my guess is maybe a 15% upcharge. So he would have charged me maybe $350 US. That's 500 Canadian. I could have just bought another GR1 for that same price, because the original GR1 is not as expensive as a GR1V or some of the more premium ones. There's quite a few different iterations of the GR1. And so, are you willing to spend $500 to get a lens fixed? Now, this was my honeymoon camera. I bought it in '98, had a lot of sentimental value to me. So it was worth for me to spend that money to get it fixed. But for most people who maybe had it for 3 or 4 years, there's no sentimental attachment to it. You probably won't spend the $500 to get something fixed on a camera that's worth maybe $700 or $800, right? So that's the one thing you are risking when you're buying these. And that's why sometimes it's just better to buy these cheap Konica Big Minis, spend $50, and then if it breaks, then you can use this as a parts camera, and then just go buy another one for $50 and keep on going. I think if you follow Tokyo Camera Style, John Sipple in Tokyo, I think he says he has like 10 of them or 15 of them, and once they die, he just picks up another one because they're so cheap and readily available in Japan. Will, Mini Lux is Japanese. Yeah, it's made in Japan. I think Minolta made it for Leica. Thanks for that, Will. Ken, have you ever played around with the Minox? Definitely, I have. They're a lot of fun. Remember, it's scale focusing though. It's not a true rangefinder. So they're a lot of fun, but you need to kind of guess the distance. You have to learn to like, okay, that's about, and the best way to do that is you have a tape measure. And I've done this with other cameras where you're like, what's 5 meters or what's 15 feet? Well, just measure it out. So you can actually shoot at f2.8 and then measure out the distance to the film plane, not to the tip of the lens. So you always measure to here. Usually SLR will have a little circle with a line through it, which tells you where the actual focal plane of the camera is. And if you do that and you have a tape measure, and you can get pretty darn good at scale focusing, you can pretty much guess the distance. So Minoxes are fun, and there's multiple versions of it, right? There's the older ones that were made in Europe, and then later on they were being made in Singapore, and I think near the end they were being made in Indonesia or something like that. So, and there's multiple generations, multiple versions. There's really premium versions of it. So depending on which one you get, your value of it will change. And Curver talking about the Contax G2. Yeah, the G series, the G1, the G2, the entire era of Contax, which was like Contax / Yashica, but the mother company was Kyocera. They had been licensed to create Contax cameras since I think the late 70s, right up into the late 1990s or maybe in the early 2000s. That generation of their SLRs, their rangefinder cameras like the G1, G2, and the point and shoots and the glass that they were able to make. So it was basically German engineering with Japanese manufacturing. What a great collaboration for that whole series. And then once the licensing deal ran out, I think Zeiss or Contax took it all back. And I think that was their downfall. I think even today, if they worked with a Japanese manufacturer like Kyocera, I think they can make fantastic cameras, or even work with Nikon or something like that and make some kind of a hybrid Zeiss, Nikon. I don't know. I'm just throwing out ideas. Let me know what you guys think. Let me see here. Sans Klaus talking about, will we ever see new film cameras from one of the major brands? I don't think so, other than maybe Leica. The tooling for it is getting so old now. It's like asking someone like Ford to say, hey, your Ford Mustang from the 1980s were great. Can you just remake it? Well, the tooling for it may be around somewhere, but most likely they've just melted it down and built something else, or sold it off to like their Ford factory in some third world country, right? Where sometimes what happens is the tooling gets looser over time, and instead of just throwing it out, they'll move it to their offshore plant. And so camera manufacturers have pretty much thrown out, melted down the tooling, so they'd have to remake the machines that make the machines. And so to do that, they need a kind of a guarantee that they can sell them in mass quantity or in small quantity, but at a super high price. And when these cameras were brand new and they were making like 50 to 100 different types of cameras and video cameras and stuff, and they had all the tooling to make certain things across all their product lines, it was cheap to do that. But then all of a sudden now like Nikon or Canon, to make just one camera, they need to build an entire ecosystem, supply chain, engineering, everything dedicated to make just one camera. And all of a sudden, you're going to start seeing Leica prices, right? So people are like, why is Leica so expensive? Because Leica has less than 2,000 global employees. Their camera division, the team that actually makes their film cameras, is probably under 100 people. And, it takes months for them to make one camera. They're not going to charge $500 for them. It's just, and they're being built and assembled in Germany with very high living standards, high taxes, great benefits. And that's going to find its way into the product that you're buying. So same with these Japanese manufacturers. I don't know any of them. I would say the one company that's in the best position to make one is probably Fujifilm, but they're very strategic. They're much smaller than they used to be. Back in the film days, Fujifilm was bigger than Nikon, Canon, all those guys, because they were the #2 film manufacturer in the world, but they were also the #2 paper and chemistry manufacturer in the world. Every one had a film lab, right? Every country had labs. Fujifilm was probably #2 or #3 in terms of making 1-hour labs. Noritsu made them for Kodak, and then Agfa made their own machines. Konica made their own machines. So they may even been #1 in terms of making 1 hour labs, making paper, making chemistry, making film. They were huge. And from being one of the largest and most influential film camera manufacturers out there to becoming now this kind of a much smaller, tighter company that they make more money on chemistry and cosmetics and medical equipment than they do on camera gear. I don't think they're going to take a risk to make a film camera, to be honest. I want it to happen, but talking to friends that I know that's in industry, including in Kodak and Fujifilm and other manufacturing levels, as well as smaller boutique brands like Mint Cameras and these smaller manufacturers, and talking about the new film cameras, they're all like, yeah, like these large manufacturers aren't going to do it. It's going to have to come from a boutique company, a much smaller company, and it's going to probably take a while for them to come out with them. I am aware of a project, but I can't talk about it. So they are very serious about making film point and shoot like this, you know, and they're serious about making them in the $500, $750, $1,000, $1,500 price point, brand new. And so that's all I can say. I can't say who it is and what they're going to make, but it is right now in the works, in the engineering phase. So we will see it, but they're not going to be coming from the major manufacturers. I see. There you go. Okay, thanks, Will. Ibrahim and Kevi are talking about the Canon F1 and what do I think of the Canon F1s. F1s are fantastic. If I were to choose between a Canon F1 and a Nikon F3, I would probably pick a Canon F1, which seems very controversial. And also remember, there's multiple versions of the F3, but there's also multiple versions of the F1. F1 is older, came out, I think, maybe late 60s for the original F1, or maybe early 70s. And then the last ones are probably maybe not even manufactured anymore, but it will be early 90s or late 80s. So there was the F1, the original F1, and the new F1, or just the F1N. And 1984 would probably be the pinnacle of the F1 sales because it was the official camera of the 1984 LA Olympics. And you can see a lot of those around in Hong Kong where it has the Olympic little label or seal on it. But I love the F1. In fact, I even like the Canon the FD mount lenses over the Nikon lenses that they had, their F mount lenses. But they're great, very modular. I saw a lot of photojournalists. I think the F3, even the original F2, were the camera choices of a lot of photojournalists during the Vietnam War for the U.S. I think by the Vietnam War, they said that they had a choice between a Leica setup or a Nikon setup, and a lot of them went with Nikon because with the rangefinder, once you get to like 135 to 200 millimeter, it's hard to focus with such a small rangefinder focus patch. It was much easier to focus with an SLR, and that's where Leica started getting into the SLR realm because they realized that SLRs was probably the future when it came to sports photojournalism, that kind of stuff. But they would never abandon the M mount and the rangefinder cameras, which was kind of historically where they came from. But the Canon F1 was king of the 70s and 80s, and I think the F series when it came to so they were head to head with the Nikon F and the Canon F series, and in '84 is probably where where Canon really peaked because of their L series glass. And one of the lenses that they released for the '84 Olympics was their 1200 millimeter f 5.6, which I think they only made 10 or 15 of them. They didn't make too many of them, and that was like this crazy. Well, it's a 1200 millimeter lens, was insane, and so that's what was featured for the 1984 Olympics. And so, for my generation, we all wanted the Canon F1. It was just, and a lot of the friends that I knew that were in the field that were working studio photographers, because of the modularity with being able to pop out the pentaprism and put you can put waist level, you can change out the focusing screens and stuff like that, multiple power drivers for it. It was a really great camera. So if you have the ability to buy one, I say go for it. But if also, it's like comparing a Ferrari to a Porsche again, right? They're both great. You're going to have people that are saying one over the other. Between Ferrari and Porsche, I love the Porsche. over a Ferrari. But there's an argument for Ferrari as well, and same with the F1 and the F3, which often they get compared against. I just prefer the F1 over the F3, but both great cameras. Someone talking about the Yashica T5 Super. Yeah, all those. In North America, I think, what were those things called? Sorry, in Asia, I think they were called the Kyocera T Super. And in North America, they were marketed as the Yashica T Series. But those are basically fantastic plastic versions of the Contax T2 and the Contax T Series, right? Because, as I said, all those Contax were made by Kyocera, and Yashica was owned by Kyocera. So the mother company was Kyocera, and Yashica and Contax were two different lines. So a lot of people don't know this, but the Contax SLR mounts was the same as the Yashica mount. The lenses were interchangeable. So if you wanted to get cheaply into the Contax SLR world, you just have to buy a cheap Yashica body, but then you can just attach on any of those expensive Zeiss glass on there. But yeah, those were the king of the fantastic plastics. Were definitely the Yashica T Series or the Kyocera T Series. Those are great. A lot of the skateboarders like them. I do have one in my studio here. Let me just, should I go grab it? I'll grab it. Just give me a second. I have it in here. Where did I put it? I have one. It was broken. The flash stopped working on it, but it's in the dark here too, so I don't know if I can find it. Yeah. I can't find it, but I do have a Yashica T4. They have a little periscope on there. A lot of skateboarders like them because you can shoot down by the waist, or you can shoot kind of above your head and look up, and you can shoot over your head. So those are cool too. Let me see here. Someone talking about the Nikon S Series rangefinder. Those are great too. Yeah, the Japanese rangefinders are really cool. But the problem was they were kind of copying the Leica rangefinders. But then when they realized that SLRs were outselling the rangefinders, Canon and Nikon both had great rangefinder, interchangeable lens rangefinders. They pretty much abandoned them and went into, when it came to rangefinders, they were more of the built-in lens kind of rangefinders. And they went into SLRs, and they kind of abandoned that premium rangefinder line, which is a shame, but it makes sense because interchangeable lens rangefinders weren't that popular in the 60s and 70s and 80s. They just weren't. It was the film SLR that was the cutting edge, and the masses were buying them. And so that was a main reason why it kind of, if anyone were making rangefinders, they just kind of stopped making them. And that's the same thing that happened kind of in the watch world, where the Japanese took over the watch world. I think before the 1970s, it was like, I read somewhere, because I'm a huge watch nut, that it was like 70 to 80% of all watches in the world were being manufactured in Switzerland, or parts, at least machining part of the watch was coming from Switzerland. So even if it was an American-made watch, a lot of the parts were coming from Switzerland. And by the end of the 70s, it like flipped, and it was like 60, 70% of all watches were coming out of Japan. And so it just decimated the Swiss watch-making industry, and just hundreds of these little micro brands just disappeared. And the same thing happened with cameras. When the Japanese entered the camera industry, it just wiped out most of the European camera industry. They just stopped making cameras because they just couldn't compete with the quality and the quantity that Japan can create at the time. And one of the negatives of that is a lot of these great brands just kind of stopped making stuff. And also some of the different specialty cameras that were being made by these Euro brands, like rangefinders, kind of became passé for a long time. And now that it's kind of picking back up again, you look back, you have to go quite far back to find really good Japanese interchangeable lens rangefinders. Like the G2 and the G1, they weren't really rangefinders because they weren't rangefinder focused, right? It was an autofocus camera. You can focus by scale, but you didn't really have the focus patch on them. The Konica Hexar RF had that, but that was also auto advanced. It had a lot of auto features. It would have been nice to have a proper mechanical wind feature and rewind feature, and that stuff kind of died out in the 70s and 80s, other than Leica and some other smaller brands. So let me see here. Sorry, I don't think I can get to every question. And also, Will, I see my time now. I'm at 54 minutes, so I'm gonna probably wrap up soon here, guys. So thank you so much for joining my second live weekly show. I do appreciate it. Yashica FX2 was your camera in high school. Jamie, that's awesome. Yeah, and you can, that Yashica FX2, you can put any of those contacts glass on there, which is awesome. Ibrahim, I love how you pronounce Nikon. I know that's the correct Japanese pronunciation. Yeah, it is. I mean, it's mostly United States that say Nikon. I find most people in Australia or the UK or most of Europe will say Nikon. And so fortunately or unfortunately, the United States is a powerhouse when it comes to culture as well. And so when something in America, something from anywhere in the world becomes popular in the US and something is mispronounced, like I always say, like I love my Asics shoes and I get corrected and they say it's Asics. And I say, no, it's Asics because it's an acronym for Anima Sana in Corpore Sana, which is like sound body, sound mind in Latin. And in Japan, they spell it in katakana and it's Ashiksu. So in Japan, we say Asics, but here everyone says Asics. And so even like the CEO of Asics USA or North America will say Asics. And if I say Asics, they'll correct me, but I'm like Japanese. I'm like, it's pronounced Asics. And so even my name, Kayo, everyone says Kayo. And half my relatives, my siblings, just allow people to mispronounce it because it's kind of a privilege thing, right? Like North Americans will say words the way they want to say it. It doesn't matter if it's mispronounced. This is the way they want it. It's like boka versus boke. Boke is a Japanese word invented in like the 1980s, probably. And anything in Japanese with an E is always e. So karaoke, boke, Pokemon, take, emoji, anything with an E in Japanese is always pronounced e. It's always. Japanese only has 5 vowels like Spanish. A, I, U, E, O. Those are the only 5 vowels. And there is no multiple variations. Now in English, we probably have dozens of vowel sounds, even though we only have a certain amount of letters. Like I always say tomb, bomb, and comb. All of them end with O-M-B, but tomb, bomb, and comb. U-R-O, but it's just the letter O. Well, what rule says how do you pronounce each O? There is no rule. You just have to memorize it. So English is a very mongrelized language. There's a lot of mixture of French and German, but also a lot of imported words. And again, because of the power of the United States social media, as well as their movie industry or the entertainment industry, if they pick up on something and they say boca, everyone just picks up on it. Even if they're a huge institution, they'll say it wrong. And I find Europeans are very good at trying to pronounce things correctly. And I think Asians as well, they try to pronounce things correctly. I think, unfortunately, for a lot of my American friends, they don't really try to pronounce things correctly. I think they just decide how they want to say it, and they don't really care if it's right or wrong. So take it for what it is. But anyways, Nikon is the proper pronunciation. It's a shortened form for the official name. If you ever look up Wiki or something like that, it's like Nippon Kogaku something. It just means Japanese heavy industries or something like that. And so it's just been shortened to Nikon. And in the 80s, people would say, no, it's Nikon because it's short for Zeiss Icon. And that was kind of like an old wives' tale. It wasn't really true. You go to Japan, it's still spelled Nikon. It's just with the ni, E. And it's just only Americans, North Americans, that say Nikon. It is Nikon correctly. So me being Japanese, I'm not going to say it wrong because it's like making me say my name wrong. So I will say Nikon, but if you say Nikon, I'm not offended. Just like if you say Asics, I'm not offended. If you say karaoke instead of karaoke, it's okay. But I'm going to say it the proper way. And so I think that's a good way of ending this video, guys. Thank you so much for joining. I'm going to try to keep this a weekly show. So let me know down below what kind of things you want to see. I think as the holidays come closer, though, maybe I don't even know when the 25th lands or when January 1st lands. If it lands like on a Thursday or a Wednesday or a Friday, I might just sort of either cancel it or move it just a little bit earlier just to let people, enjoy. I forgot about last week. Last week was U.S. Thanksgiving, and I forgot about it. And someone's like, you would have more viewers if you didn't do it on American Thanksgiving. I'm like, oh, I forgot about that. So I'll look at the holiday schedule, and if I will change the time and date, I will definitely let you know when things will change. And so thanks for joining. And we're going to end off with a click, and what shall we do? Oh, I'll use my limited edition Ricoh GR in the hammer tone like green finish. So thanks for watching and happy shooting. Click, click, and click. Talk to you guys soon.